You ever feel that moment when something's off even before you know what it is? It's not loud. It's not even obvious. It's just quiet. Too quiet. That's what woke me. Not the sound itself, but the shift. The hallway light was off. The house still. But something had changed. My eyes blinked open in the dark, heart already beating faster before I heard it, the faint metallic click of the front door unlocking. I didn't move. Didn't call out. Just stayed where I was, hunched on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, my legs half asleep from lying there so long. The TV screen had gone to black, the remote still in my hand, untouched for hours. It was 1:42 a.m. I watched the door crack open and Lauren stepped inside. She didn't see me at first. She didn't expect to. Her body moved with that kind of ease people only have when they think they're alone, when they've already convinced themselves everything is normal. Her coat was still on, cinched tight, like she'd barely had time to peel herself away from wherever she'd just come from. She kicked her shoes off lazily by the mat, holding her phone loosely in one hand and what looked like a cocktail shaker in the other. She froze when she spotted me, just for a beat, but recovered quick, too quick. The kind of practiced recovery that made my stomach turn. "Oh, hey," she said, forcing a smile. "I didn't think you'd still be up." I didn't say anything. She gave a light laugh, soft and tired. "Sorry I'm late. One of the girls from work had a birthday thing, totally last minute. We did drinks at her place after the meeting." She held up the shaker like a trophy. "Cute, right? They gave these out as little party favors." I looked at it. Silver, engraved with some generic logo. Could have been from anywhere. Could have been the truth. Or not. Her voice stayed bright, maybe a little too loud for a sleeping house. I wanted to text, but the service was trash in that part of town. You know how it is. I did. But I also knew her voice. And something about it didn't sound like her. It sounded built. Her coat slipped open slightly as she walked to the kitchen. Beneath it, she wasn't wearing the same blouse and slacks she'd left for work in that morning. Instead, a short, black dress I hadn't seen before. Tight, strapless. Something I would have remembered. She set the shaker down carefully on the counter and pulled her phone out of her pocket to plug into the charger. Her back to me now. Her posture loose, casual, but her shoulders too squared, too conscious. "Long day," she mumbled, letting the coat fall from her shoulders. We had that double client session and then surprise drinks after. I probably should have called. "I'm sorry if I worried you." I still hadn't moved. I just watched. That's when I noticed the bracelet. A delicate gold chain with sapphire studs. Not extravagant, but noticeable. It caught the light when she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I'd never seen it before. I would have remembered that too. Lauren wasn't the kind to buy herself jewelry. Not without pointing it out or asking my opinion first. She looked up at me finally. Her expression softened, just slightly, but her eyes scanned mine like she was trying to read what page I was on. "You okay?" she asked. "You're quiet." I nodded once. "Did you eat?" she asked. "I brought some leftovers if you're hungry." "No," I said. Just that. One word. Her face twitched. "Barely. But it was there." "I'm just gonna shower," she said. "I smell like red wine and birthday cake." She turned to leave the room. And that's when I saw it. A small smudge right where her neck curved into her shoulder. Faint, almost hidden in the low light, but unmistakable. Lipstick. Not hers. The color was wrong, too bright. Too pink. Not the shade Lauren ever wore. She disappeared down the hall and I sat there, frozen in the silence she left behind. It was like the air had stopped moving. Like the walls of our house knew something I didn't. Or maybe I did know. Maybe I'd always known, in the way people do when they don't want to admit it. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, staring at the shaker she'd set down. It still had condensation on the outside, like it had come straight from someone's hand. Not a gift bag. Not a table centerpiece. The bracelet sparkled faintly from where she'd tossed it beside her phone. I picked it up, holding it between my fingers. It had a tag still tucked inside the clasp, tiny, like one from a boutique. My heart thumped harder. Who gave it to her? My mind raced, but my body stayed still. The makeup. The dress. The bracelet. The story that sounded too smooth, the kind told by someone who knew she'd be walking into a dark house with a husband too tired to ask questions. Only this time I was awake. And now I was listening. The next morning I stayed in bed long after Lauren had left for work. Or at least after she said she was going to work. I heard the garage open and close, the car backing out, the beep of her phone syncing with the Bluetooth before she pulled away. I lay there with the ceiling staring back at me, trying to replay the night in my head like a movie I'd already seen but somehow missed all the red flags the first time around. That lipstick mark on her neck haunted me. Not just because it was there, but because of how easily she acted like it wasn't. Like she'd already practiced not flinching. Like she'd rehearsed the moment she'd walk in the door and see me, or worse, not see me. The quiet after she left was heavy like fog. I pulled my arm over my face and closed my eyes, but sleep was impossible. What I did instead was what I should have done weeks ago. I retraced everything. Every conversation. Every weird schedule change. Every moment that had felt off. And there were more than I wanted to admit. It started small, as it always does. A late meeting here, a rescheduled dinner there. Things that could be explained by work. At least, that's what I told myself. Lauren was a project coordinator for a boutique ad agency, the kind that treated creative flexibility as a license to keep people in the office until midnight. I'd been to her office a few times. I knew the vibe. I knew the people. I didn't question it at first. But then came the perfume. A new scent, stronger, muskier, with a touch of citrus. I remember the first time I noticed it. She walked past me in the hallway and I stopped like someone had yanked a wire inside me. I asked if it was new. She smiled and said a client had given her a sample. "You like it?" she asked. I said I did, but it didn't feel like her. Her old perfume was lighter. Floral. The kind that reminded me of Sunday brunches and walks through the farmer's market. This one smelled like night. Like being out too late. Like trying too hard. Then there were the clothes. Not all at once. But slowly, subtly, she started dressing differently. The high-neck sweaters and simple blouses were replaced by slimmer cuts, lower backs, tighter fits. She started getting her nails done again, red, not the clear gloss she used to prefer. She wore lipstick more often. Not for me. I noticed that too. It wasn't that I didn't like the changes. It's that they didn't feel like they were for her either. One night, 2 weeks ago, she came home late again, and as she changed in the closet, I saw a pair of earrings on the dresser. Small, gold, circular hoops. Simple, elegant, unfamiliar. I asked where they came from. "Oh," she said, like she hadn't even noticed them sitting there. "I forgot to pack those on the trip last month. Just found them in the bottom of my purse." Only she hadn't packed those earrings. I'd helped her pack. We were going to her cousin's wedding and she wanted to travel light. She brought only studs. I didn't argue. I just nodded and said cool. But inside, my gut twisted. Then there was the Purple Heart text. It was around 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. We were on the couch and her phone lit up face up for once. A notification, "Can't stop thinking about you, Purple Heart, Purple Heart." I saw the name. It was saved as just initials, RW. She laughed, picked it up, and said, "Spam." I swear they're getting better at making these creepy texts sound real. She swiped it away and didn't say anything else. I wanted to press. But I didn't. I wanted to ask why she had that number saved at all, spam or not. But I didn't. I didn't want to come off as jealous. Or paranoid. Or insecure. God, I hate how many times I convinced myself not to ask questions that needed asking. There were more signs. The laundry. Yeah, I noticed the lingerie that had suddenly reappeared, the ones she used to hate because they were too itchy or too impractical. I remembered when we bought them during a weekend getaway 2 years ago. She wore them once and then never again. But now they were back. In rotation. Once I saw them drying on the rack after she came home from a supposed work drinks event. I stared at them for minutes, wondering if I was supposed to pretend I didn't see them. Even her phone habits changed. Subtle at first, then blatant. Before, she used to leave her phone on the counter while cooking or toss it on the couch when she went to shower. But lately it was always within reach. Face down. Locked with a passcode I didn't know anymore. She used to say, "I have nothing to hide." That phrase was one of our inside things, even. I remembered saying it when I shared my email password once because she needed to access a flight confirmation. But now? Now it felt like I was being trained. Like I was being slowly conditioned to expect less and less openness and pretend it was normal. That morning, I pulled myself out of bed and walked to the kitchen. The shaker she brought home was still there. I picked it up. It was nice. Heavy. Branded. Not the kind of party favor you hand out at some casual office birthday thing. It had a tag still inside. Crafted for Orchid Hill Retreat. I froze. Orchid Hill? That name rang a bell. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our shared calendar. The one she used to sync her events with mine. And there it was. Off-site workshop. Orchid Hill Retreat Center. Friday through Sunday. It was coming up this weekend. She hadn't mentioned it yet. No reminder. No talk about packing. No, "Can you feed the dog while I'm gone?" Just a quiet calendar block that now took on a whole new meaning. I stared at the shaker again. Her words echoed in my head. It was just a gift. Some office thing. But it wasn't. It was something else. And the cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were openings, wide, unmistakable. All the little moments I'd tucked away, dismissed, explained. They lined up now like breadcrumbs in a trail I was never meant to follow. But I was following it. And I was getting closer that I didn't tell anyone what I was planning. Not even Ellis, my oldest friend and one of the few people I actually trusted. Not yet. That Friday, I took the day off work. Told my team I had a dentist appointment and a family thing. Nobody asked questions. That's the thing about staying quiet long enough. People stop digging. I packed light. Just my phone, a camera, and a notebook. No confrontation plan. No dramatic speeches. I wasn't even sure what I expected to find. Part of me hoped it would all feel stupid when I got there. That maybe I'd see a bunch of coworkers huddled around a PowerPoint presentation, sipping herbal tea and talking about team alignment. But the other part, the part that had been pulling the thread for weeks, knew better. Orchid Hill was about an hour and 20 minutes out. A retreat center tucked into the woods on the edge of a mountain town. Fancy cabins. Private decks. Soft jazz playing on the homepage. I'd looked it up the night before and recognized the shaker Lauren brought home from the gift shop section. That was my last piece of doubt crumbling away. I got there around 3 p.m. The sun was still out, the sky low with clouds like it couldn't make up its mind about raining. I parked my car in a gravel lot a few hundred feet from the entrance and walked the perimeter like I was checking for something. Like I was casing a place I had no business being near. The grounds were beautiful, quiet, well kept. Cabins spaced out enough to give the illusion of privacy but still close enough for shared amenities. It didn't feel like a corporate workshop space. It felt like a place you'd take someone you weren't supposed to be with. I stayed low behind a row of trees, binoculars pressed to my face like some cliché movie spy, waiting to see anyone I recognized. I felt ridiculous, but not enough to leave. That's when I saw her. Cabin 6B. It sat near the bend of a walking path, its porch half covered in shade from the trees. Lauren stood there barefoot, a robe wrapped loosely around her body, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Her hair was damp, fresh from a shower. She had a glass of wine in one hand, her phone in the other, but she wasn't looking at it. She was laughing, not at the phone, at someone behind her. A man stepped into view. He wore a thin black t-shirt, jeans, no shoes. His hair was short, dark, familiar. I didn't recognize his face right away, not from that distance, but something about his posture rang in my gut like an alarm. He walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and buried his face in her neck like it was a daily ritual. She didn't flinch. She didn't freeze. She leaned back into him, tilted her head, and closed her eyes. They stood like that for maybe 10 seconds, maybe less, but it felt like forever. Then they sat, her on the railing, him between her legs, his hands on her thighs. Her robe fell open slightly at the top, and she didn't fix it. She giggled again, kissed him on the cheek, and raised her wine glass in mock celebration. That was the moment I raised my phone and took the picture. I didn't think. I just did it. 1, then 2, then 3. I zoomed in and got the clearest sh*t I could. Her smile, his hands, the wine. The same bracelet still on her wrist. No one could say it was ambiguous. I watched for another minute, then turned away and walked back toward the road. I didn't breathe until I got to my car. My hands shook as I slid the keys into the ignition. For a moment, I just sat there with the engine running and the air conditioner humming against the silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't feel much of anything. I had expected anger, rage even, but what I felt instead was a strange, quiet clarity. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was that she'd been so sure I wouldn't find out. So certain she could layer lies on top of lies and still come home to a husband too polite to press her. She'd rehearsed it, and I'd played my part. I drove home slow, windows down, letting the wind slap at my face like it could knock some sense back into me. I didn't listen to music. I didn't check my phone. I didn't even feel the need to call her. When I got home, the house looked the same. Silent. Comfortable. Lying. I walked into the kitchen, dropped my keys on the counter, and looked around. The dish towel she liked still hanging on the stove handle. The half-burned candle on the table, vanilla and something sweet. The couch blanket folded too neatly like she'd left it that way on purpose. I sat down in the same spot I'd been in days earlier when she'd walked in wearing that coat and carrying that cocktail shaker. And I opened my phone. I scrolled to the last photo. The one where they were mid-laugh, her hand on his chest, his thumb brushing her knee. Zoomed in, I could see it, her necklace. The one I gave her for our 5th anniversary. The one she told me she wore to feel close to me while she was traveling. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like the only thing to do. A hollow, breathless sound that didn't make it to my chest. And then I just sat there. 4 hours. Staring. Thinking. Understanding. Because now I didn't need a confession. I didn't need a confrontation. I didn't even need her to lie again. I had the truth. And it was right there in plain sight. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I lay on the couch with the photo still open on my phone, the screen dimmed but not dark, watching it fade and relight every few minutes as I tapped it to keep it alive. The battery was nearly gone, but I didn't plug it in. Some part of me wanted it to die, like maybe if I let the screen go black, the truth inside it would vanish with it. But the truth was out now. I'd seen it. And I couldn't unsee it. By the time the sun crept through the blinds, I was already sitting at the dining table, a notepad open in front of me. Old school. Pen and paper. Bullet points. Because I knew this wasn't just a moment of infidelity, it wasn't an accident or a mistake or a cry for attention. This wasn't someone who got swept up in something they didn't understand. This was a system. A setup. And now I needed to know how deep it went. So I started digging. I pulled out everything, her receipts, her email, our shared calendar, her luggage tags. I opened drawers I hadn't looked through in months. I found boxes in closets, folders in shelves I never thought twice about. The receipt in my hand showed a 2-night stay at a luxury spa resort just outside Boulder, booked under Kelsey's name. There was no client conference in Denver that weekend. I checked. Twice. That weekend, she had called me from a noisy bar, saying she couldn't hear me well, telling me not to worry. I remembered the call because she laughed through it. This bright, carefree laugh I hadn't heard in months. I thought maybe she was finally letting work stress go. Now I knew it wasn't stress she was letting go of. It was me. And the man in that cabin last weekend? He wasn't the first. Maybe he wasn't even the main. That night, I pulled out an old burner phone from a kitchen junk drawer. I'd bought it years ago when we went on an international trip and never used it again. But I knew Lauren had a habit of storing things she didn't want backed up to her iCloud. And when I powered it on, typed in the PIN I figured she'd never bother changing. It worked. The screen lit up. Messages loaded. And what I found made everything before it looked small. The phone was old, battery bloated, screen slightly cracked. But it still booted up. I watched the glow fill the tiny display like I was waking up something I shouldn't. And maybe I was. The moment the lock screen cleared, I felt it in my chest. The wallpaper was a photo of the ocean, one I didn't recognize. And in the top corner, a folder labeled Archive. Inside, dozens of messages. Some were short. Some were years old. Some were deeply personal in ways that didn't include me at all. It wasn't just that she was talking to someone else. It was who she was in those conversations. Different, looser, cruel in small surgical ways. She called me intense. Said I loved her too hard. Said she sometimes felt like she couldn't breathe when she was home. The first thread that caught my attention was labeled Riley. Just that, no emoji, no initials, no fake name. I tapped it. The messages loaded slowly, each one a punch. Miss the way we were. Remember the little motel off the highway? He still doesn't get it. Still thinks I'm tired all the time. It's like I'm living 2 lives. He's suspicious, but too proud to admit it. The most recent one was short. Just a single line. I'll never be able to tell him. Not everything. He still thinks I'm his. And then, days later after Orchid Hill, I wish I could stop hurting him, but it's easier to keep lying. I scrolled until I found something that made the room tilt sideways. With Riley tonight. Don't wait up, kiss mark. It was unsent. Still sitting in the draft folder. But the timestamp said enough. It matched the night she told me she was stuck at an off-site dinner. I stared at it like it would rewrite itself. But it didn't. It just sat there, mocking me. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was strategy. She wasn't slipping. She was planning. She had escape routes built into her life like hidden exits in a burning house. And I realized I didn't need to wait for her to admit anything. I needed to protect myself. So I called Ellis. Ellis and I had gone to college together. He was a friend first, then a lawyer. The guy you called when you didn't know what else to do. He didn't answer on the first ring, he never did. But he picked up on the second with that familiar dry voice. "What's up, man?" he said. "You sound tense." "I need to talk," I said. "Not as friends. As a client." There was a pause. "You're serious," he said. "Yeah. And I don't want this going anywhere." We met that night. Quiet bar near the edge of town. Corner booth. He slid his beer aside when he saw the look on my face. I laid everything out bit by bit. The late nights. The hotel slips. The burner phone. Riley. The fake name. The lies. The photo. He didn't interrupt. When I was done, he leaned back and rubbed his jaw. "This isn't just cheating," he said finally. "It's concealment. Depending on how far it goes, this could touch fraud." "Fraud," I echoed. "If she's been using someone else's identity, if there's financial deception tied to those trips, shared credit, business deductions, anything tied to your name or accounts, yeah, that's serious." He pulled out a pen and started jotting things down on a napkin. "You need to start documenting everything. Don't wait for a confession. Assume you'll never get one. Back up every message, every receipt. Don't tip her off. Just build the record. Quietly." "What about Riley?" I asked. Ellis raised an eyebrow. "You know who he is?" "No, not yet. But I will. Then find out fast. If she's funneling money, transferring anything, or if he's influencing her behavior." "You think he is?" He looked at me like I was slow. "Of course he is. This is a coordination play. You don't pull this kind of lie alone. Not for this long." That word, coordination, it stuck with me, because I had already started to feel it too. That this wasn't just about Lauren stepping out. It was about control. When I got home that night, I started my own archive. I bought a hard drive, set up folders, labeled everything with dates, cross-references. It was methodical, not emotional. I saved every photo, every message from the burner phone. I downloaded our bank statements, printed receipts, annotated calendar entries. I created a spreadsheet mapping every offsite against every corresponding email she'd sent me. I became my own investigator. And then I found the message that finally cracked me. Buried in an old note on the burner phone, hidden behind grocery lists and reminders, was something she had written and forgotten to delete. It said, "He's paranoid. Always watching me now? I hate it. But it's better than him finding out the truth. He's too fragile to handle it." Fragile. That word set something off inside me I couldn't quite explain. Because I wasn't fragile. I was quiet. I was patient.